Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. Today I figured I would do a potential matchup of Donald Trump's best case scenario in the 2020 election. So that would be considering taking all of the polling data and basically saying, okay, well, Donald Trump appears to be leading here, leading there. If all the cards fall in the right spot, where exactly would that put Donald Trump for the 2020 election? If his handling of the coronavirus improves, if his handling of the economy is well taken by the American voter, how would the election shake up? So, in this scenario, I guess I'll just start by going through all the safe states, regardless of whether or not Trump is in a landslide or Trump is winning. These are going to be states that are going to vote Democratic regardless. That would be California, Oregon, which, as I've stated many times, is no longer going to be in contention within presidential elections, probably for decades to come. Washington State, not much to talk about there. New Mexico, I'm going to leave not as a safe state because if we're talking about Trump's best case scenario, New Mexico would not be a safe state for Joe Biden. Moving forward, Illinois would be safe, as well as Vermont, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, New Jersey, Delaware, Maryland, District of Columbia, as well as the state of New York and the state of Hawaii. So those are going to be the safe states for Joe Biden in this scenario. Moving forward, the safe states for Donald Trump would be Utah, Idaho, Wyoming, Montana, which I did discuss in my best case scenario video for Joe Biden. Montana was a likely state, but there's no question that in Trump's best case scenario, Montana will be a safe state for sure, including North Dakota, South Dakota, Nebraska, minus that second congressional district, which at this point I'm going to leave as a toss up until we move forward. My apologies, messed that up. Kansas, Oklahoma, Missouri, which would be a safe state as well. Arkansas, Louisiana, Alabama, Mississippi, and South Carolina. These could be a little bit more in contention in Joe Biden's best case scenario because we've seen that he does tremendously well with African Americans, and that would likely in his best case scenario, move these into a likely category for Donald Trump. But in Donald Trump's best case scenario, he'll be winning these states by 20, 25 points easily. Mississippi, South Carolina will go to Donald Trump safe, as well as Tennessee, Kentucky, West Virginia, and Indiana. That Pence factor and Trump's approval in the state definitely will put that in the safe scenario. Even if it was Joe Biden's best case scenario, it would probably only be on the likely to safe end. So that will put Donald Trump at 122. My apologies, forgot the state of Alaska, 125. The Democrat Joe Biden at 182. Moving forward, I'm going to start filling out all the likely states. I believe that regardless, New Mexico will be a likely state. In Donald Trump's best case scenario, Joe Biden will still be winning the state of New Mexico by at least 10 to 12 points. There's no indication that this is going to change. I think that even if Donald Trump wins re-election, Hillary Clinton or Joe Biden will significantly outperform what Hillary Clinton did. And Hillary Clinton was able to win this state by, I believe, about 8 points. So there's no question that when she lost in what could be considered a modern day landslide, she still comfortably carried the state of New Mexico. So no question that will be going to Joe Biden. Similarly, the state of Colorado, which has seen a tremendous shift in modern day versus earlier in 2004 and 2000 when George W. Bush carried the state. There's going to be a very interesting Senate race here between Cory Gardner and the former governor John Hickenlooper. I think that's definitely going to help put Joe Biden over the line, and I think the Joe Biden factor as well will help to put John Hickenlooper as a moderate over the line. So I think it's kind of a dual scenario where both candidates are going to be profiting. Moving on, the state of Nevada. I believe that Hillary Clinton was able to carry the state. Joe Biden, in his best case scenario, will carry the state of Nevada. Or Joe Biden, in his worst case scenario, my apologies. Donald Trump's best case scenario. He still would not be able to carry the state. So Joe Biden has shown that he does have support here, even though he didn't win in the Democratic primaries. It went to Bernie Sanders. Hillary Clinton was still able to carry the state as well as the state of Colorado and New Mexico. That there's no indication that's going to change. The 2018 midterms was very positive for the Democrats. They picked up a House seat, they picked up a Senate seat as well, and they held on to the governor's race. So the state is trending in a Democratic direction, as Clark Kennedy and Las Vegas continue to grow, that is going to move the state in a more left direction. So I'm going to be giving that as a lean to Joe Biden. Moving forward, I believe that the state of Minnesota will be a lean to likely margin for Joe Biden. As I've stated many, many times, Hillary Clinton was able to carry this state. Um, Joe Biden performed very well in the Democratic primaries here. And I think that's going to get him just over the line, even in Donald Trump's best case scenario. Minnesota is a state that is not necessarily fond of the Republican Party. We've seen that this area of the country, Wisconsin, Iowa, Minnesota, has been slowly trending over towards the Republicans. But I think Minnesota, the Rochester area, the Minneapolis area is definitely going to make a difference for Joe Biden. He's going to run up a big turnout there. Even though Donald Trump will do very well in the rural areas of the state, I believe that Minnesota will still go to Joe Biden, even in Donald Trump's best case scenario. A similar story would be in the state of Virginia. I guess the best idea to do here is just go through all of Joe Biden's states, and then we'll move forward into more of the swing category. Virginia, I believe, will go as a likely margin. I do not think that Donald Trump will be able to put in a lean margin. If it was Bernie Sanders on the ticket versus a Joe Biden, it could definitely be a lean to a potentially tilt Democratic scenario. But because Joe Biden has such tremendous support in Northern Virginia, in Fairfax, as a centrist corporate candidate, as I've mentioned many times, there's realistically no scenario for the Republicans to carry the state. And that's 13 electoral votes that they desperately need to win elections. We've seen George W. Bush carry the state, and really getting Republicans over the line, they're losing 13 electoral votes for many, many elections to come that really help them to get over the line in many previous elections. And there's no question that's going to hurt them moving forward. Virginia, as I've said many, many times with scenarios such as Minnesota, Nevada, and Colorado, New Mexico, these are states that Hillary Clinton carried, and Donald Trump still would not be able to carry them in his best case scenario. New Hampshire as well, it's a very similar story. I'm going to be giving that as a tilt to Joe Biden. I don't think that Donald Trump will be able to carry the state. As I've said many times, Joe Biden will drastically outperform Hillary Clinton, regardless of whether or not Donald Trump will win. There's no question, and I don't think there's any pollster that will question the idea that Joe Biden will definitely outperform Hillary Clinton. And New Hampshire was a state that Hillary Clinton was extremely narrowly able to carry. Donald Trump was very competitive here. He did very well in the Republican primaries. And New Hampshire is a state that is in swing territory. And if we see this go over to Donald Trump, it's game over for Joe Biden. He's going to lose big. But New Hampshire, I believe, Joe Biden is not necessarily the most popular here. He did not do well in the Democratic primaries by any means. He got completely swept under the rug in that primary, which definitely hurt his campaign. But nonetheless, going to give that as a tilt to Joe Biden. Moving forward into the state of Maine, I believe that Maine's first congressional district, where Portland is, that will definitely be going to Joe Biden safe. Maine at large, I'm going to be giving as a lean to Joe Biden. This was a district that Hillary Clinton was able to pretty comfortably carry, not by a huge margin, but she was still able to carry the district. And in Donald Trump's best case scenario, going to be giving the second congressional district, which is very indicative of the national landscape. I think that Maine's second congressional district is really going to be very important to determining the outcome of the election. It's just as swingy and just as Trumpian as some of these other states that are going to be in contention. So at this point, I believe in Donald Trump's best case scenario, he was able to comfortably carry the district in 2016. Unless polling proves otherwise, I think I'm going to be giving that as a likely lean to likely margin. At this point in Donald Trump's best case scenario, that's probably going to be about a 10 to 12% victory, similar to Joe Biden in New Mexico. Moving forward, Texas would definitely be a likely state. The reason for this is I've already put Texas in Donald Trump's corner, even in Joe Biden's best case scenario. It'll probably be something like an 8 to 10% victory. I don't think he's going to outperform his 2016 number, which was 9%, which for a Republican is not very good in the state of Texas. We saw Mitt Romney get about a 17% victory, and similar for John McCain, who are much um, worse candidates for the Republican Party than Donald Trump is. And as an incumbent, I believe that Texas will still go to Donald Trump, probably by around a 7 to 8% margin. As the cities continue to grow, as El Paso, as Houston, as these other suburbs become more democratic, the state is slowly shifting into the Democratic column. In 2008 and 2012, no one would even have put Texas as a swing state or a toss-up state, but it's slowly going to move over into that category as Trump becomes more toxic and the Republican Party rather becomes more toxic in the suburbs. Moving forward, I believe that the state of Iowa, as well as the state of Ohio, the reason I include those in the same burst here is because I think that Iowa and Ohio have very similar voting patterns. They went to Obama twice. They went to Trump. The demographics in the state are very similar. They're white, working, industrial, and farming people. And I think that in Donald Trump's best case scenario, he will comfortably carry the states, probably by around similar margins that he did in 2016. 10 points in Iowa, probably around 8 to 9 in Ohio. And those are electoral votes for the Democratic Party. Unfortunately, Ohio is not as strong and as committed to the Democratic Party as it used to be with Obama. Twice he was able to win this state, but we've seen a drastic shift. Now, it might just be a Trump effect. It might be that Trump is just very popular with white working class voters here, which anecdotally is true. If you take a look at the evidence, and polling has suggested that Trump will win here. Or in some cases, it has shown Joe Biden narrowly ahead, but I don't necessarily agree with pollsters considering what happened in the Midwest in 2016. But I'm going to be giving Ohio and Iowa as likely states to Donald Trump. Moving forward, the state of Nebraska's second congressional district, going to be giving that as a lean, not a tilt, to Donald Trump. It would probably be a tilt for Joe Biden in Joe Biden's best case scenario, but Donald Trump was able to win here pretty decently in 2016, and in his best case scenario, I think he'll carry that district as well as Maine's second congressional district. They'll both go to Trump again. Moving forward, the state of Georgia would likely to lean. I'm going to be giving it as a lean now. I think that Georgia is becoming less conservative than a state like Texas or a state like Ohio or Iowa. Georgia has shown that Democrats have been getting extremely, extremely close in many of the governor's races. There are many Senate races that are in contention here. If the Republicans are able to narrowly claim those Senate seats, then Georgia is definitely going to be more in contention. But right now, I'm going to be giving it as a lean to Donald Trump because I think that he is still going to be able to carry the state by probably 4 to 5%. And Joe Biden's support amongst African Americans in Atlanta and in the suburbs of Georgia, which is a very African American heavy state, is definitely going to put Georgia in contention, no question. Even in Donald Trump's best case scenario, Georgia will still be a lean. Moving forward, the state of Florida. Florida was already going to be a Donald Trump state, I believe. I think that in Joe Biden's best case scenario, it would likely be a tilt to the Democrats. But in Donald Trump's best case scenario, I think that Florida will be a lean, not a tilt state. So probably around 2 to 3%, potentially 4% if Donald Trump is doing better than the pollsters at this point think he will do. The reason for this is Donald Trump in 2018, the midterms, Florida was one of those states that really started to move away from the Democrats. We've seen that the Democrats were able to win in the Midwest. The Democrats were able to win basically everywhere on the map, including the South, in many House seats, such as Oklahoma, which is very safe for Donald Trump, but they were still able to pick up a House seat here. Florida is one of those states that really didn't stay strong for the Democrats. Donald Trump's Republican Party was able to pick up a Senate seat here. They held on to the governor's race, albeit very narrowly in both those scenarios. But Florida is always a toss-up state. And Florida has shown every indication that it will go to Donald Trump due to the fact that he is very supportive of in the Panhandle in Collier County and in the west of the state, as that becomes more populated, as more people move into Florida, which the projections show that the electoral votes in 2024 for Florida will increase. Um, that's definitely going to help the Republicans. And I think that Joe Biden is not going to run up the type of margins on the eastern coast of the state, in Palm Beach, in Broward, and in Miami-Dade, to really offset the tremendous amount of support for Donald Trump in the rural counties in Florida, and especially in the Panhandle, which is so tremendously strong for Donald Trump. So I'm going to be giving that as a lean. It would be fair to characterize it as a tilt for now, but in Donald Trump's best case scenario, there's absolutely no reason why Florida can't be given as a lean to Donald Trump. Moving forward, the state of North Carolina. I believe North Carolina will also be a lean to a tilt margin. At this point, I'm going to be giving it as a lean. It's going to be very, very close to see whether it's a 2% victory or a 4% victory. But I believe that North Carolina will be a lean state, just like it was in 2016. Donald Trump will probably carry it by around 3 to 4%, possibly on the lower end. But I think this is going to be a state that likely goes to Donald Trump anyway. And the reason for this is that we always characterize North Carolina as a swing state, but the interesting thing is that Republicans have done very, very well in this state. And despite on multiple occasions characterizing North Carolina as a swing state, as a key alert state for Senate races, for governor's races, for presidential elections, they continue to vote with the Republicans. And in Donald Trump's best case scenario, that is simply something that is not going to change. So now we're moving on really to the heart of the election, which will be the Midwest as well as the state of Arizona. Now, at this point, I don't necessarily see Donald Trump's best case scenario unfolding in a presidential election because of how he has been handling the coronavirus and how the country really disapproves of his handling of the coronavirus. So for that reason, that's going to be the main issue moving forward into the 2020 election. And that's going to be something that Donald Trump is going to have to defend, and Joe Biden will have to attack Donald Trump on. Absolutely no question. That's going to be the number one issue going into the 2020 election, whether it's healthcare, whether it's providing for families, putting food on the table. These are issues that are going to be precedent and are going to be number one in this election moving forward. So in Donald Trump's best case scenario, Arizona, I believe, would be a tilt to Donald Trump. In reality, I do not think that the state of Arizona will be going to Donald Trump. All of the polling has suggested that Joe Biden will win here narrowly by probably around 2 to 3%. And based on how the Democrats have performed in the state in 2018 and the midterms, have shown every indication that Arizona will be a blue state in 2020. However, it's also very hard to characterize. The reason being is that in the Senate race for 2020, there's Mark Kelly running against Martha McSally, who already lost to Kyrsten Sinema. And I've said this many times in my videos. And that corporate Democratic candidate, Mark Kelly, is much stronger than Kyrsten Sinema, who already won her Senate seat against Martha McSally. So that's definitely going to make a difference for Joe Biden in the state. And in Donald Trump's best case scenario, which is what we're doing here, he would extremely narrowly carry the state, probably within less than a percentage point, because it's going to be very competitive and very close. So it's fair to say, well, in the regular election landscape where Joe Biden is extremely competitive, he would likely carry the state. And in Donald Trump's best case scenario, he would carry Arizona. But in order to win back Arizona's support, which Donald Trump won by only probably about 3.5%, I believe. So he narrowly carried the state in 2016, and he's not necessarily approved of in this state. So he is going to have to win back Maricopa County and Phoenix voters and convince them to vote with him again, despite the state's history of continuing to now elect Democrats. Arizona is not a safe, likely, or lean state. It is now a purple, potentially blue-leaning state, and that's going to be trouble moving forward if Arizona becomes the new Virginia. If Arizona and Phoenix and the surrounding suburbs begin to move more towards the Democrats, just like Fairfax and Northern Virginia, we're going to see Arizona slowly but surely move into the Democratic column, just like Virginia was able to. But nonetheless, we're going to keep moving forward because that's not the topic of this video, is it? Moving forward, Pennsylvania, in Donald Trump's best case scenario, I'm going to be giving that as a tilt to Donald Trump, probably within 1%, just like the margin it was in 2016, about 0.7%. Despite Joe Biden having the home factor in the state, Donald Trump there anecdotally has been able to do very well with rural voters in Erie County, in Pittsburgh, in the really the heart of the state. It's a T-bone state. The middle of the state is extremely conservative. And if Joe Biden is not running up the numbers that he needs on the East Coast, if he's not getting African American turnout, which is highly unlikely, but hypothetically, if he's not getting the African American turnout he needs in Bucks County and Donald Trump is, or Philadelphia County rather, and Donald Trump is becoming much more competitive in those blue counties on the East Coast, that's going to put Pennsylvania certainly in play. And in his best case scenario, Donald Trump would carry that state. Similarly, the demographics in Wisconsin are very similar. These states tend to vote together. Despite 1988 and previous elections, these three states in the heart of the country, in the Midwest, in the industrial center of the United States, tend to vote together. And Wisconsin, I believe, would be no different. Wisconsin is the state, I believe, that would be most likely to vote for Donald Trump, given that the polling in 2016 was so off, putting it as a comfortable state for Hillary Clinton. +7, I believe, was the last poll before Election Day. And she ended up losing by about 0.7%, which is a similar margin to Pennsylvania. And Donald Trump is very popular in the state. We've seen that in that congressional district in the recent election about a week ago. You know, the Republicans outperformed their numbers. Same with California. They outperformed what the polls were saying, and they did extremely well in the state. So that's definitely a good indicator for Trump. And in his best case scenario, I believe that Wisconsin would narrowly be able to go into his column. Now, the state of Michigan, Donald Trump was able to win by about 0.2 to 0.3%, only about 10,000 vote margin. Very, very, very close. Joe Biden was able to win here comfortably in the 2020 primaries, 2020 Democratic primaries, rather. Donald Trump this is the state that he is least approved of in the Midwest. Pennsylvania and Wisconsin, he is still pretty much underwater in those states. Now, Donald Trump is a wild card, and that doesn't necessarily mean that he can't win those states back. But Michigan is one of those states that really has turned away from Donald Trump. It didn't approve of him in the first place. The only reason he won the Midwest is because Hillary Clinton was a quote unquote poison, and it was choosing between one lesser evil and another. And I don't think Joe Biden necessarily has that factor that Hillary Clinton did. So Michigan is going to be extremely, extremely close, just like Pennsylvania, just like Wisconsin, and just like Arizona. But at this point, I don't think it's fair to characterize this as a Donald Trump state. Toss-up is fair, but at this point, even in Donald Trump's best case scenario, Michigan will be a tilt to the Democrats. As I've said many times, I believe that pollsters and this election will drastically improve for the Democratic Party. And if Donald Trump is able to extremely narrowly take back the White House, which in my personal prediction, if you guys wanted to watch my election 2020 first prediction video, it is on my channel. You guys can go ahead and do that. Michigan was a pretty comfortable state for Joe Biden. And Joe Biden will definitely outperform Hillary Clinton's number by winning back the state of Michigan and winning all of the rest of the states that she carried. So at this point, Donald Trump is definitely going to have to make changes to realistically get this map. And it's very easy to put Joe Biden over the line by simply giving him a tilt in Pennsylvania and giving him a tilt in Wisconsin. And that's not impossible to do, and giving him a tilt in Arizona. Those are all in play. And that would completely flip the election on its head. But at this point, going to be giving all these states over, besides Michigan, over to Donald Trump. And anyway, that's going to wrap up this video, guys. If you enjoyed, please make sure to hit that like button. Comment any suggestions would be much appreciated. I always am looking for ways to improve my channel. And I've just started this. So, of course, if you guys have any criticism, make sure to definitely tell me in the comments. If you guys want to check out any of my other videos, I did a similar scenario for Joe Biden's best case scenario. Um, and anyway, I'm really looking forward to reading all the comments, and I appreciate any of the support that I can get. So hopefully in the next few days I'll come out with another video. I'll think of something else to do. Maybe a more comedic version, maybe something different. But anyway, at this point, Donald Trump definitely is going to have work to do. And if he wants to recreate the magic of 2016, he is going to have to drastically change what he has been doing now. And he is going to need to get supporters from Joe Biden. He's going to need to get independent voters. And this map is much less, much less likely than a Joe Biden's best case scenario, for sure. Even in an election landscape, most pollsters have Joe Biden narrowly winning, um, and that's what I personally think. But if things somehow change and the country approves of Donald Trump, he would still massively lose the popular vote, no question. He would lose by probably around 5 million if I had to take a prediction. But and that's going to be a whole separate issue about Donald Trump losing the popular vote by a tremendous amount and still managing to clench the victory. But at this point, going to be giving this victory 290 for Donald Trump and 248 for Joe Biden. Thank you guys so much. I'm going to end the video here. Have a great weekend. Everyone stay home, stay safe, and I'll see you in the next one.